Yeah, thanks everyone for coming out here and attending this talk. Honored to share some of my learnings with you guys about product. So first, yeah, the talk is about how to boost user engagement. First let me tell you a little bit about the agenda for tonight. First, I'll go through my background so you know who I am, kind of my experience, and then I'll dive into why engagement and why I chose this topic for the talk. I'll kind of explain more in detail what it is exactly, and then I'll go through something called the shirtless engagement framework. It's kind of a funny acronym. But it really helps you kind of remember the different concepts. So I'll go through that, and then we'll have a Q&A at the end. So how does that sound? Good? Cool. Just before I start, I wanted to get a feeling for the room. So how many of you are currently product managers? All right. And for those who aren't product managers, curious about your background. Does anyone want to? UX, okay. Growth. So marketing or, okay. Anyone else? Program? Cool. Yeah, it's good just to kind of understand everyone's backgrounds and what are the things that you are interested in and kind of what brought you guys out here. Awesome. Great. So yeah, let me give you a bit of an overview of my background. So I started off my career in finance at Apple, and I didn't really know about the role product manager at the time. So after university, I just started working in finance, and then when I was there, I started chatting with people and learned about product manager as a career. Product management as a career. And then once I found out about that, I went to Rocket Internet. I don't know if you guys know Rocket Internet. Anyone? Okay, so they're kind of they're massive, but they're based in Europe, and it's kind of like an incubator for startups. And they generally take business models from the US that are like somewhat proven, and then they internationalize and try to win in other markets. So I worked in social gaming. I worked at Wimdu, which is competitor to Airbnb, and then Helpling, which is an on-demand cleaning startup. After working at Rocket Internet for a while, that's how I got my introduction into product management. They hire a lot of product managers because they have a lot of startups, and they have very good training there as well. So that's kind of where I gained my skills. Then I worked at Kara, which was a B2B SaaS startup that helps businesses onboard their users. It was acquired by Autodesk. And then I worked at Blacklane. It's again in Europe. It's very similar to Uber, but focused on the business traveler market. So a lot of consultants, salespeople, they use Blacklane. And then I was at Shipt for a little while, for just under a year and a half. And then about 2 months ago, I joined Walmart. So just a lot of kind of fast-paced changes. I really enjoy that. I feel like it's really interesting for me to like grow and like work at different companies. So I've worked in Germany, I've worked in the UK, worked in Toronto, worked in Silicon Valley. So it's really exciting and really enjoy like taking my experience from different industries and different companies and countries and applying it. So yeah, that's a little bit about my background. Okay, cool. So engagement. Why did I choose engagement as the topic for this talk? So for me, engagement is really critical. It's super important because it is a leading indicator of your product's value. So what else is really important besides engagement? Retention rate. Like if users keep coming back, that's really important. And also if you're able to make money. However, those metrics are lagging indicators. So it'll take a while for you to understand that users aren't coming back. It'll take like 30 days or even longer for you to realize, oh, users aren't coming back, they're churning, or we're not able to monetize. For example, Facebook, they didn't really monetize for the longest time, but they had strong engagement and retention rate, which allowed them to really succeed now. All they have to do is really turn on advertising and build tools for advertisers. So for me, as a product manager, engagement is really, really key, because that's kind of the starting point and the leading indicator. So in terms of engagement, what is it? So for me, it's the core behaviors of your product. So we can go through some examples. So what do you think are Facebook's core engagement metrics? Anyone? Yeah, likes, shares, posts. So yeah, basically it's interactions, right? Likes, comments. So interactions, and what's another big one? I think someone said. It's another core engagement is time spent. So actually Facebook mentioned that they were optimizing for this for so long, but it's now being almost too addictive that it's malicious, like hurting users. They're not, it's creating a negative experience for users. So you have to be a bit careful and a bit more human, I feel like. So even though it's important to optimize, there are limits. Let's go with Google. Okay, whoops. Pushed it too fast. All right, you saw that. So, okay, so it's a search query. So that's your key engagement metric. And then YouTube. Any shout outs? Yeah, views and time spent as well. So they're trying to, that's why they have amazing recommendation service. I don't know if you've been using YouTube over the years, but their recommendations are becoming amazing. Like you're there, you watch one video, and it's like the next one just comes in and it's exactly what you want to watch. So they're optimizing for it, and it's amazing. So let's talk about how we can grow engagement. So there's a framework, and frameworks are really useful for product managers because they're an effective way of having structured thinking. And that way you're also able to kind of, not only can you explain it really well, you can also kind of, it's almost like a checklist for product managers. So that's why I like to use frameworks. And I think when you're just starting out as a PM, you'll probably read a lot about a lot of different frameworks, and then you'll develop frameworks yourself on how to approach problems and think about things. So Shirtless is a framework I developed as I've been working at various companies to try to grow engagement. So yeah, it's pretty powerful. So it's like Superman. So this talk is pretty interactive. It's a pretty small crowd, so I think we can get pretty interactive and cozy. So as I talk about their frameworks, if you have any examples or thoughts about the different concepts, feel free to just put your hand up and contribute to the talk, because I would love to learn from you guys as well. Okay, so So Shirtless stands for different concepts and things you can do to improve engagement. So I'll say it quickly first. So it's basically showing users how to do something, making it human, incentivizing them, reducing barriers, timing it, learning from users, explaining it to users, increasing sunk costs, and also social proofing it. So it's a really easy way of remembering all the things you can do to increase engagement. So the first concept is showing users. Often when you have a new product, users don't really know how to use it. They don't know all the cool features. So it's really about just showing the user. And there are different ways to show the user. One is you can create a video. You can use animations and pictures. I know like Dropbox had an amazing explainer video in the early days. You can create an onboarding experience, such as overlay or a spotlight tour. You can have notifications that need to be cleared away. So, for example, I think WeChat and Foursquare, they have like a little dot, red dot. It's not very intrusive, but you're like, there's a dot, I want to clear it. Or even iOS, right? There's like these little numbers you want to, I think it's a little bit different, but you want to interact with it because it's a disruption in the UI. There's also the ability for you to reposition user interface elements for discovery. So moving things around to make it more discoverable. You can also make it fixed. I know there's a lot of companies that have been A/B testing fixed elements that are just like in your face. Oh, just to go back to this example, repositioning user interface elements. When Facebook first launched My Day, I don't know if you guys saw it in your Messenger app. They had it in various places. So they did a lot of A/B testing. And for some users, My Day was smack in the middle of Messenger, and for some it was at the top, and some was at the bottom. So they did a lot of positioning to try to figure out the best way to do My Day in Messenger. And you can also use wizards. So this is Airbnb's example. So that when you're a new host, they'll teach you like what the different functions are and where you can find them. Cool. Anyone have any examples or thoughts about this concept? Yeah.
We also just call this like showing the customer journey, not the customer, but the user journey as how it's product.
Definitely, yeah. So it's like different ways. For example, this one, it's really showing the journey. If you're creating a video, this one as well, onboarding experience. But if it's notifications to be cleared away, for example, you launch a new feature, you just have a little dot on it, and people will be wondering, hey, what is this dot? I just want to interact with it. And then they find it themselves at their convenience. So you're not disrupting the user flow. Same with positioning elements. You're just making sure people see it as well. Cool. Humanizing it is a really interesting concept. So people reciprocate. If you're nice to someone, they're usually nice to you back. If you give people a gift, there's a sense of kind of indebtedness. So it happens with attention. So when you humanize it, when you treat people like an individual, they'll also pay more attention to your app. So curated content, for example, even the App Store, right? They have curated content. And that's really key because the users think, wow, someone's actually curating this content for me. There's attention. Same with IM. They have missions for users. You can engage with users via the app, such as in-app messaging or email. You can give free help. For example, Airbnb does the free photographers, right? It's very humanistic. It's great. Shopify does something which allows you to access partners that help you build your storefront and improve your store. So yeah, Shopify experts basically. And also, if you think about some of the most popular apps, they're chat apps, right? And the reason why it's so engaging is because you know there's someone on the other side. So yeah, so another idea is really to make it very humanistic. Do you guys have any examples from what you've seen? Any great products out there that leverage this concept? Cool. Yeah, let's move on. Incentivization, this is pretty generic. Everyone knows about this. When you incentivize people to do things, they're more likely to do it. So yeah, Dropbox, they gave free space, right? Special status, when you invite people. So that's one example. Another one is giving credit or points. So Reddit and Hacker News uses this credit system. And it's really interesting because you're not actually giving away anything. You're just helping users keep track of their contribution. And then creating demand and scarcity, right? So incentivization, pretty basic concept, lots of different ways of doing it. Yeah.
Creating demand is different than limiting time and scarcity. So you want to give an example of how you do the limit time?
Yeah. So for example, when you're creating scarcity, it also incentivizes you to take action. For example, like Groupon has that famous countdown, right? And you're like, shoot, I really should take action, otherwise I'm losing out. So it's just this idea of, I should do it. Uber gives away free credits when you invite people. So giving some sort of, this is like just, it's not actually money, but it's recognition. This is something a little bit more tangible. Cool. Any other thoughts? Examples?
The biggest one is cloud. It's only available for a certain time, so the whole world goes.
Yeah, and then yeah, like you get a huge discount, right? If you have Prime, so you're incentivized to sign up for Prime. Cool. All right, next one, reducing barriers. So this is all about reducing friction. I'm sure you guys do this already in your jobs, where you try to make it easy for users. You try to reduce drippage in your funnel, right? And what you can do is you can just really make it simple for users. For example, when they go to a website like the App Store or Kickstarter, instead of making users search, you can just have them browse, because it's much easier just to browse, right? So it's they don't have to think, so it's less of a barrier. Easy access. So Amazon's one click. It's really seamless, very frictionless. Pre-populate. So this is key. A lot of my work in product management has been about this. So auto-suggest, pre-populating addresses, information, using Facebook, sign-in. So this is really key. You can really boost your conversion rates, especially earlier in the funnel when you pre-populate data. So allowing them to click and tap instead of typing. So social login is one example where you just tap and you're in. Speed everything up. So one of Google's principles, it's just to go really, really fast. Make sure your website loads fast. Make sure it's responsive, and just, speed wins. They even prioritize websites that load faster. So Google's principles, one is do one thing really, really well for your product, so make sure your product is really well. And then another one of their key principles is the speed part. Reduce the clicks required for workflows. Again, just cutting that down. Reducing choices. So there's a book called Paradox of Choice, which I really enjoyed. I think it's pretty popular, so you might have already read it, but I still like to recommend it. Too many choices create friction and discomfort. Free trials and no credit card requirements. So you can A/B test whether this works in the long term for you. If you feel like there's a lot of value in your product, you might want to take out the whole credit card requirement up front. So this is just one example, autocomplete, right? It's making it a lot easier for users to get what they want. Another one, reducing barriers. Face ID, because you have to open your phone all the time, And this is a really easy way to get access to your phone just by looking at it. Any thoughts on that? Examples? Cool. All right, so timing is also super key. So when you are, when you're creating a product, you have to be sure to show the right things at the right time. It's almost like just life as well. You have to do the right things at the right time. Otherwise, it doesn't work, right? So let's talk about timing. So pretty much everyone's doing this now. It's like after you have a good experience, you'll be asked to rate the experience. And that's how apps get like 4.9 on the App Store. It's because you're timing it, right? So if your metric is to have a high rating or a really like positive thing, you should do a positive response from the user. You should ask them when they've just had a positive experience. Showing content based on location, that's another one. Oh yeah, go ahead.
Comment on that. It's also like where you direct feedback. So like obviously metrics probably have a really great app store rating. So like asking people for a positive review or for a review after a positive experience, you probably got into the app store, but if you want them to give you negative information and not get your review, you probably ask them to give direct feedback.
Yeah. And then don't drive them to the App Store.
Right, okay.
Yeah. I feel like every app's doing that now.
I had a breakdown app where the guy in the shop would come out and pick you up once you've broken down. We were only actually asking for feedback after they've been picked up. So 2 in the morning, it was raining, it was just been resting outside the road. Just sort of waiting for it just because people were so pleased to be picked up after their car broke down.
What product is that?
It's in England, it's the VAA breakdown series.
Okay. Right.
So,
Interesting.
It's when you
Time it right.
Open with the rating request.
Yeah.
I always thought
That's 1 star.
Right.
Yeah.
Or permissions when you first open the app and you're like, I don't trust you yet.
Well, not the first time you use it, but like later on, like 10 times in, you ask it right from the open.
Yeah. Right. It's not good timing. Yeah. Go ahead.
So before we get to the next slide, I think how would you differentiate this discussion with your slide discussion already had in terms of experience versus engagement? Like how would you see the difference? What according to you is different?
Sorry.
Consider these experiences as the engagement, or engagement independent of the experiences, or
Right.
the negative aspects or the positive aspects?
Yeah, so, I mean, it really depends on your product and what metrics you're trying to impact and improve. So, I was just giving an example about App Store ratings. It's generally not a core, engagement metric, but I was just using it as an example of timing. Right. Yeah. Definitely. We're still on the core engagement metrics. So for example, another one is, Google Wallet. It's pretty amazing if you add gift cards. Once you get to, for example, I added a Walmart gift card. Once I go to Walmart, it sends me a push notification saying, hey, you want to use your gift card? And that's super awesome because I think a lot of people like myself, we don't like gift cards. We're like, as soon as we get it, we're like, all right, how can I use it ASAP? And we keep forgetting, and often I would just pay cash. And then, so I think that's a super awesome feature. Which probably is a core engagement feature when you use the Google Wallet.
I think,
Yeah.
in my opinion, that would be an experience which surely adds to engagement.
Yeah.
Of future.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. So we're talking about like what we can do to really drive that metric. So it can be a feature. It can be messaging. It can be like UX, UI, a lot of different things. Video. Cool. Showing content based on location. That's kind of the Google Wallet example, or Google Pay. I think they might have rebranded. Introduce new features once the basic ones are mastered. So in games, and also in some apps as well. I know at some companies I worked for, we didn't really expose the power user workflow to a first-time user. For example, at Blacklane, we had a very easy way for people to make bookings, but we didn't really expose it until they've used the app a few times. There's other examples too. I don't know if you guys have any at the top of your head. For Instacart and for Shipt, when you first start working as a shopper, we don't allow you to batch. So batching is when you shop for multiple customers at once. But as you kind of get familiar with the job, we'll start rolling that feature out. So so basically introducing more advanced features over time, so not to overwhelm users. There's a really great article called State of Flow. If you Google like game psychology, state of flow, you can read up on that concept of exposing more features over time. The right time to send emails and notifications as well, timing for different companies I worked for, we played around with tipping, right? So tipping is something very interesting. How much people tip when, so we played around with timing, and actually when we did, we realized we can really drastically improve the percentage of users tipping and how much they tip. So we realized if people are busy, for example, if you're like using Instacart or Shipt or Uber and you're asked to tip and you get a notification when you're busy, you have your luggage, you're probably not going to. But if you send a notification a bit later, once you've kind of settled down, then you get a notification to tip, it's a higher chance you will. But if you wait too long, you'll forget about the experience, you'll forget about the person a little bit more, and you're less likely. So it's really interesting for tipping. So this is, go ahead.
Yeah, one of the worst things I've seen about this is when somebody codes into an app to send a notification 3 days after certain events, because that day starts at 1 minute past midnight. If you're in bed, you're not 1 minute past midnight. It's a really lazy thing that I've seen quite a few apps do.
Yeah.
It's really important to get the time and
definitely
location, not just on the 4th day sending an email.
Yeah, it's a great comment. Also, a lot of things are just valid for testing too, right? Like when's the best time? We don't know. Just test it out. Have some hypotheses. Yeah, go ahead.
So, what time was the optimal time for sending out visit?
It wasn't too long. So generally, I think as a best practice, you want to do it like within the hour. So I would say probably from 10 minutes to 1 hour, just start testing in that range. But I think every service and company is different. So, there's so many great testing tools out there. It's pretty fun. So go ahead and test to your heart's content. Great. So what else? Contextual recommendations. So Google has really interesting recommendations because they're like, oh, it's Sunday night. It's probably something a little bit more chill compared to Friday night or Saturday night. So that's a really good example. Any more thoughts on timing? All right, cool. Listen. So it's super important to listen to your users. So one is you can build goodwill by letting users feel heard and understood. So I think a lot of companies are good at this because they have this whole rating system, right? Like you can rate this and rate that. You can get feedback. So I think companies are getting quite good at this. I know generally in some of the companies I've worked for, we tend to deprioritize this, but because it's really hard to, if we're not taking action on ratings and feedback, we don't really do it that well. So there was a pretty big discussion on whether we should let some users rate when we're not actually able to implement that data and use it in a good way. But then later on, we thought it made sense just to make them feel heard because we were constantly getting feedback that they felt kind of, if they weren't able to rate, they were frustrated. So yeah, giving people a voice is really important. Yeah, two-way ratings are key. Like eBay, Airbnb, Uber, they all do two-way ratings. It keeps people honest, even though the driver's rating of you generally doesn't make that big of impact. It makes the drivers feel much better. Like before they did that, like it was even more frustration with Uber. Personalization of content. Again, it's massive for us to increase engagement. If it's just a YouTube example, right? Like they're so good at understanding what we're interested in and what we like. It really helps. And now with machine learning, it's massive, right? Like every company is getting into machine learning, and it's all about personalization. Generally, there's two ways. One is you're basing it on kind of the user, and another way is basing it on correlation with the content. Yeah, so my example is with YouTube. Like they're just really awesome at figuring out what you like based on if you give a thumbs up, if you watch the video, or if you don't watch it. I heard a talk by some guys from Netflix, and they're saying how it doesn't really matter so much your rating, but whether you started watching the video. It doesn't even matter if you watch the whole video because it shows intent or interest in this topic. So, any thoughts on listening to users? Yeah, go ahead.
I've got a friend who will only watch YouTube videos in private mode, and if he likes it, he'll rewatch it and not in private mode so that he can it doesn't mess up the algorithm for his personal information.
Interesting. Yeah, so he's like on top of that. He's like, I'm gonna make my own curated content. Don't want to mess it up. Yeah.
I think that can only cause problems when you have multiple users using the same system. So I've got a friend of mine who bought a DVD player, and it still had the Netflix logins from the previous owner.
Yeah.
So he's gone in there now, and the stuff he's watched is completely messed up.
That's horrible.
To the previous owner.
Yeah.
So now there's loads of kid videos.
So you just gotta rewatch the same content again and again.
Yeah, so because you watch this, you're now getting this. Well,
Yeah.
so as long as it's very much personal to the user, there's something that can be locked into the individual user.
Yeah.
I think it's when you get to certain services,
When it-
maybe families of certain multiple
Yeah.
where multiple people can log in, that starts to then
I guess
reduce
the
that.
DVD player doesn't have the latest Netflix stuff with it. So that's
I've no idea, but I'm still sorry, my friend is still using his logins.
Yeah. So the concept is basically just listening to your users. What are they doing? Are they voting up? Are they watching it? Right. So that's the basic idea. Cool. So explaining why is another huge mechanism for getting compliance and engagement from your users. So if you have toddlers or kids, you'll hear them ask why all the time. And it's basically a human need to understand why to do something before they do it. So what we can do in this case is we can explain how long things will take. So there's a progress bar. There's like estimated time to finish this task or survey. There's a progress bar. You can also articulate a pain to build empathy. So yeah, it's basically explaining the why. So here you can see, this is a really great example from local guides. I don't know if you guys have seen local guides before. It's when you interact with Google Maps and you add contribution. So they don't say, so first of all, they do a lot of things great. One is they give you points, kind of rewarding you, and showing that you can, it's like gamifying it a little bit. But what's really cool is they also say something like, by sharing reviews, photos, and knowledge about the places around you, you can help inform millions of people. Right? So that gives you a sense of, why am I doing this? Right? The sense of, like, purpose and mission. And also what's really cool is once you contribute content, they'll tell you exactly how many people have viewed your photo that you contributed. So it's just giving that sense of like, hey, I'm doing something. This is why you're doing it, because people are benefiting. This is a pretty common display. I think a lot of people have seen this. So this is from Messenger. So this is asking you to turn on notifications, and it's saying this way you and your friends will see messages instantly on your phone, right? By adding a little bit more information and explaining why, you will get more compliance from your users. So yeah, that's what Messenger does. Any thoughts on that? Cool. All right. So supersizing sunk costs. This is the idea that people, once they start investing in something, they tend to continue investing in it because they've spent all this time on it. So what you can do is you can shuffle your funnel. So you can do things that are less demanding first. You can do something that's really simple for the user. You can ask them easy questions first, get them hooked. So you can play around with your funnel. So I did that at a previous company, and it worked pretty well, but it's not like cure-all, basically. So play around with it. You might get some small improvements. At first, we thought it was a big improvement, but the retention rate didn't stick. So it's not like a huge improvement, just a caveat. You can also let users spend more time on the site and get access first. So for example, Spotify playlists. Why a lot of people stay with Spotify, even though there's Apple Music, there's Amazon, right? And it's because they spent so much time curating their Spotify playlist. They're like, I'm never leaving Spotify because I've invested so much time in building my playlist. Let the users try a free version first. Let them make small purchases. These are all small things that can get them to invest in your product. And then when they start investing, they also rationalize and they think, hey, I must like this product. So there's a lot of factors going into play here. So you can see some of the top grossing iPhone apps are actually free apps. And you're like, why is this, right? Because you're getting people to start using it, invest their time, and then they start getting hooked on it, right? So there's other concepts like creating currency, points, member since date. This is quite an interesting concept that it's like, I've been a member since 2004 or 2005. I'm like, yeah, I should stay with this Facebook thing. They used to show it like pretty prominently. There's also this membership mentality. There's also free training resources. So it's really like, if you learned Spotify and you're really good at it, you want to stick with it. Snapchat, right? Like if your friends are on it, if you learn how to use the interface and how to get a lot of points. Yeah.
Was the S for the stickiness in your framework? I can't remember.
Yeah, this is the S.
Yeah, so what's the first?
The first one is to wait. So sunk costs, right? And then the second one is social proof, which we'll get to next. Great. So social proofing. Social proofing is a huge concept. It's used all the time. Yeah, Facebook uses it a lot. It says who's interested in what, and it's just getting you to engage with it because your friends are engaging with it. There's these people who are engaged with it, so it makes it seem like this is socially acceptable to stay in a random stranger's home, to get into a random stranger's car because other people are doing it, right? So it's just this idea of social proofing it, like referencing others who have done it, especially your friends, right? That drives a lot of engagement. Cool. So in summary, do you guys have any cool examples of social proof you've seen? Okay. Cool. So let me summarize the talk and the framework, right? So these concepts really span across industries. I've worked in like fintech, on-demand, marketplaces, food, cleaning, like just a lot of industries. And these concepts are human concepts. So they are applicable across countries, cultures, and industries. So what we're effectively doing is we are discovering ways and brainstorming ways to increase the value of our product and then lowering the cost of engaging. That's what we're trying to do. That's kind of the basic equation that's at play. And so I really hope you guys are able to utilize this framework when you are working on your projects and products, to think about like what are the different levers you can pull on to really boost your product's engagement. So thanks so much for your attention. If you have any questions or feedback, I would really appreciate it, whether it's like negative feedback or positive. I really value that. So if you want, you can reach out to me on LinkedIn. It's just my name, Tiger Zhang, or on Twitter. I don't use Twitter that much, so I think LinkedIn is better. And if you have any feedback on the talk, that would be greatly appreciated. So, thanks so much. Do you guys have any